client is an idiot. So the client became an idiot, for whatever it's worth. Client is always an idiot. Anyway. You must touch your audience with emotion. If you cannot touch them with emotion, they forget your message.
Welcome to Avenues Television, Mr. Kakar.
Thank you.
An ad filmmaker, ad guru, restaurateur, scuba diving instructor, cigar manufacturer, social activist, aspiring feature filmmaker. How would you introduce yourself to the world?
Actually, what you forgot was the most important part, which was I'm the best omelette maker in Bombay. I make the best omelettes because I make souffle omelettes, where the outside is cooked, the inside is raw.
Okay. So I'll add one more, the best omelette cooker in the world.
Not in the world, because the souffle omelette is invented by the French chefs. The whole business is that you have to make the omelette with your mind.
Okay.
Because to turn an omelette while it's still raw is very difficult. It requires enormous amounts of self-belief.
So is there some similarity between cooking and ad filmmaking?
Always, because cooking is also therapeutic. So all the damage that ad filmmaking does to you by dealing with all the clients and the agencies, cooking repairs.
Let's get back to the earlier question. So how would you introduce yourself to the world? And what is the first thing that comes to your mind when you wake up? Is it the director's chair or something else? Scuba diving gear?
When I wake up, I just wake up with great enthusiasm and think that, wow, today there's going to be another adventure. Because my life has been a series of accidents and adventures. There's nothing that I've ever done which was calculated or planned. Everything just happened.
So you're a master of all and jack of none, did I say that?
Completely. I'm a jack of all and master of none. Because I have...
master of all and jack of none.
The unique part of me is that I have the largest collection of trivia in one side of my brain, and very ordinary little things which I read or I read in the newspapers or watch or observe or I see people or interact with them, and it's all stored away, and at any given time you sort of regurgitate it, like when a cow eats its food, it sits quietly and brings it all back and chews it. That's exactly how your brain works. The whole day you spend absorbing things like a sponge. By reading, watching, looking, observing, being curious. And then when you are thinking, then all these things come back and you have to place them in some kind of order. And all your creative solutions, regardless of what they are, come from that. So they don't come from some sudden flash of lightning. They come from the fact that you have all this information already inside you and you start taking it all out and realigning it and putting it in different order. And somewhere along the line, it starts making sense. And then you get an idea.
So there is connection between everything in this world?
There's complete connection because the human brain is, the computer is actually built like a human brain. If there's nothing inside it, then you'll get nothing out. But if you fill it with information and then you know how to tap that information, then it's invaluable because you can do all kinds of things with it. Because it's quite fast, but the human brain is far superior to any computer ever built. Because it actually, every single waking hour, without you even knowing, it's absorbing and storing information.
Non-consciously and consciously.
Unconsciously, yes.
But do you sometimes feel that you have become a bit too defocused? You have diluted the brand Prahlad Kakar that we used to know, that great ad film. You're still a great ad filmmaker, but when we think of Prahlad Kakar these days, we different images come into our mind.
But why should I be stuck to one thing? I mean, there's so many things I want to do in my life before this life ends, and maybe I'll have to leave some things for the next life. Because if I do everything this life, then there's no point waiting for the next life. Then you carry on.
So you believe in afterlife?
Of course I believe in afterlife. I mean, if I've got incomplete things to do, I'll always come back and finish them. I've always finished whatever I started. That's one thing that I've always done. I've never started something and left it halfway. I've started something, it doesn't matter what it takes, but I finished it.
You also fondly call the madman of Indian advertising. Why is that so? I don't see anything mad about you at this moment.
No, it's just that very early in my career I realized two things. One is that nobody is going to allow you to do what you think is right, but they'll make you pay for making mistakes which they have made you do. Okay?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, what is your latitude? Your latitude here is that either you listen to everybody else, knowing fully well that it's not going to work. Okay? Make the mistakes and pay for it. Because you have to then correct them.
Yeah.
Okay? Or do it your way, and if it doesn't work, then you pay for it.
Right.
But at least you pay for it because you know you made a mistake. Okay? Or earlier on in your career, and this is what advice I give to all the young people who are starting off in advertising. Whenever you go to a meeting or a PPM and the agency and the client presents you with a script which has been researched and works in Brazil and worked here, worked there, and you look at it and you realize that within the cultural limitations or the cultural roots of the place that you're working in, it's not going to work. It's not going to work because people are not going to buy into it, because either it's boring or it's pedantic or it's just a piece of information which is not inspiring. And at that moment you think that maybe there's another way to do it. Okay? And you don't change the brief. The essence of the brand remains the same. The story also possibly remains the same. But you sort of fiddle with it a bit, you change it around. Now what happens most of the time is everybody says, don't touch it. No. They just do what we told you to do. Okay? And you know that it's not going to fly. And you know at the end of it you'll have to reshoot it. And you know that they will not pay for it, you'll have to pay for it. Okay? So instead of coming back acrimoniously, everybody looking at you, then they blame you also. They say you didn't execute it properly. Because they'll never admit, especially in our business, nobody admits that it was a bad idea. You know, because there are too many people locked into it. Okay? So nobody will admit that, oh, this was a bad idea, it's not your fault. But they're going to penalize you, they're going to give you a bad reputation, they're going to turn around and say, oh, Prahlad Kakar lost the plot. You know, he no longer can make good ad films because he made this very bad ad film. So to all the young people, my advice is exactly what I used to do. I used to shoot the film two ways. I used to negotiate the budget in a manner where I had about 5 to 10% spare, so that the hit didn't come entirely on me. I mean, I didn't make any money on it, but I didn't lose money. But I made the film two ways. I made it the way they had given me the board, and I made it the way I thought it should be made. Okay? At the same time, because I had the lights, I had the camera, I had the artists, I had the set, I had my cameraman. We just took a little extra time, because instead of doing one take, we did two takes. One my way, one the way that they were doing. And they used to be on the shoot, and they said, what are you doing? I said, no, I'm just shooting extra. And didn't tell them that I was shooting an option. Okay? When I edited it, I knew that the version that I had done was working much better than the version that they had done. Now, my job was to make a good film which works. And I present both to them. First present their film to them. And you could see from their faces that they were disappointed. But they would never admit that the script was flawed, that the idea itself was flawed, that the research was load of rubbish, because research doesn't tell you anything at the end of it. One person has to believe in something, and then only does it work. So since I was the person who believed, I made it both ways, and showed them this. They looked and they started nitpicking. You see, it takes one person to start saying, it's okay, but.
Conditional.
The moment you say but, you know that it's going to open a Pandora's box. So before they could get into it and start ripping everything apart, say, hold on, I've got an option, which I think you like. So it's the same idea basically, but it's just turned on its head. So have a look at it. And then they look at it and you'd see immediately that their faces relaxed a bit, because they didn't have to answer to their boss and say that we've done this film, it looks like shit. You know, everybody's trying to protect their asses at the end of it. Now they're thinking, I could see them thinking, how do we take credit for this? And at that stage, you have to give up your ego and turn around and say, it doesn't matter who takes credit for it. As long as the film that you believe is right reaches the television set. So you say, yeah, it was your idea only. You know, you said this and that's how it gave me this idea. That's how I developed it. And you're still a dada and, you know, you've done everything. You just walk away from that whole situation. Never start fighting with them and saying, you guys didn't think of it. I was trying to explain to you, you rejected it, I did it at my own cost. Now pay me. Even there, they'll completely kill you then, you know, especially if they have to pay extra money. So you turn and say, yeah, this is a gift from me, it's fine. Next time around, just involve me in the discussion at an earlier stage so that we don't have to make two films, you know, so that we can make economies with it. So slowly over a period of time, some clients believed what I said, but a lot of them thought that let's not work with this guy again because he will change the script on his own without talking to us and shoot another film. So what we asked him to shoot, they forget that I also shoot that film. But what they remember is that he did his own film. Okay?
Yeah.
And a lot of creative people within the advertising business are actually very insecure. So when you fiddle with the idea, they feel very uncomfortable and very hurt and, you know, very sort of betrayed that you have not done what you asked them to do. They forget that what they asked me to do, I have done. But they also forget that it doesn't work. So they're thinking that he's changing the script. So that's why they call me a madman. Because it takes a certain amount of conviction and courage to make a film that you believe in.
Yeah, that's true.
Despite the client, despite the agency. Because they're the system. They're the ones who are going to commission you to make the next film. So the third party who sees the film does not say, I want Prahlad Kakar to make my film because I like what he's done. But the party who I made it for never come back for a long time. Because all these people are feeling hurt and insecure and saying, no, he changed our script. And he doesn't listen to anybody. They've forgotten that I've shot it 2 ways at my cost. Nobody remembers the inconvenient truth. You see? So that's why I got a reputation for being a mad hatter.
Perhaps you are not a mad person. You are the most sane person in advertising.
No, I'm mad because I refuse to do work which I think is mediocre. There are a lot of times when I've done mediocre work also. It's not that I'm perfect. There are a lot of times when I've done really bad work. But
for example?
There are lots of little films. But I've learned to go through convenient amnesia. That if you look at the film, every time you see it, it becomes worse. When you look at a bad film, you made a mistake. And for various reasons, for time, for opportunity, for no money, whatever, you can't go back and correct it because you don't have time. And the client has to release it tomorrow, day after, whatever, whenever he's made his booking. So you just close your eyes and let it go. And then you watch it, and every time you watch it, it becomes worse and worse. It doesn't become better with time. Every time you see it on the thing, you wince. So I said, how do I protect myself from this damage? So I started saying it's not my film. So, because in advance you don't have a credit line, so nobody really knows who made the film. Except, they recognize, a lot of people recognize my film because they are slightly hatke, as they call it, They have an insight, they have a madness to them. There's an exaggeration of some kind. It must be Prahlad Kakar film. But when I don't like a film, I turn and say, no, it's not my film. If I repeat it often enough, I believe it. And if I believe it is not my film, then I can watch it. Then I say, look at this rubbish film, who made it?
But that's the mark of good director, isn't it? They are not satisfied with their work. I think Kurosawa said that, I wanted to make a film but could never make one.
You see, the process is very simple. When you read a script or you get an idea, you can close your eyes and you can see the film. And it's perfect. That's a director. A director can actually close his eyes and see the film running in his head. Okay? Now, you have to go and shoot the film. Okay? Now you have millions of people who you have to explain the film to because it's in your head, but it's not in their head. So when you explain it to them, depending on how convincing you are and how well or badly you explain it and how intelligent they are to pick it up, they only understand bits and pieces of the film. They never understand the full film. They can never see the full film.
Yeah, that's true.
The actor sees only his part. The cameraman sees only his part. You know, the editor looks at this rubbish and says, I can't make out what it is. You know, and so forth and so on. So everybody in some way contributes to the film in terms of value addition, but also takes away from the film. Because the image that you got in your head, you're beating your head on the wall saying, see, inside my head, and then let's all do it together. The success of a film depends on how close you come to the image in your head. But believe me, I don't think there's a single director who's honest enough to turn around and say, I got it right. It's always 60%, 65%. If it's really brilliant, 70%.
And for
but
clients,
never 100%.
Yeah, that's true. And for clients, it's I think 40% because they've made a different film in their
No,
mind.
no, they look at it, they see it as themselves. But a lot of clients actually can't see, which is why they're clients.
But they see it differently.
No, they don't see it. You see, in my life, there are two value systems. There's my value system, which says 2 and 2 should be 22. And there's the suits, you know, who wear suits and who look very logical and do the MBAs. They follow another system which says 2 and 2 equals to 4. Okay? And to them, if it equals to 4, even on paper, they're happy. Because it adds up, it's correct. If it's 3, they're not happy. But if it's 22, they say, how can it be?
That's not possible.
It's not possible. So you reject it. You reject 5, 6, 7, 22. You accept 4. You reject 3. Okay? So, as an idea. So, how do you make them understand that 2 and 2 can be 22 if you add value to it? If you make it exciting, if you add, you know, little things to it. They'll never understand. They'll never understand because to them 2 and 2 is 4. Okay? Only people who are artists, who are dreamers, you know, everybody dreams, but only dreamers remember their dreams. You see, and dreamers dream during the day. They dream at night also, but they dream during the day also. Like all my life I've dreamt in the day. I sat in class in physics and dreamt about something else. I've sat in chemistry, dreamt about girls. You know, so every time the teacher used to catch me, I would end up outside the class, and I'd be dreaming. So throughout my early life, I was punished for dreaming. Now I'm being paid for doing precisely that. That's the irony of life. Yeah. That you get punished when you're young for doing something that you get paid for when you're old. You know, for whatever. Dream, give me a technicolor dream. You know, so that my product looks good, the story is good. You know, the heroine looks beautiful, the hero looks like a frog. You know, whatever. So you have to dream. People who dream understand 2 and 2 can be 22. People who don't remember their dreams and people who dream in very straight lines, they think 2 and 2 should be 4. Now, how do you explain to a client this idea is 22? He'll look at it and be very suspicious. He says 0. To him, 22 is nothing. It's 0.
He'll make 2 minus 2 is 0.
Yeah, he'll make it 0. He'll say, no, I can't take the risk. He won't take the risk. You do what I'm telling you to do. Then you have to make it your way and his way. When he sees it, when you make it, and he sees it, then he says, wow, ये तो कुछ और कर दिया तूने. And then he readjusts his idea of 4 to try and accommodate your idea, because he realizes at that stage that there's a value that you've added to the work which you can't compute. Okay? And he wants that value. And he also wants to take a little credit for it. So now he finds some way to figure out that he also was a part of that decision. And if you're smart, you'll allow him. It's like a wife. If she's constantly telling her husband that he's always wrong and she's always right, he will leave her. So every time she corrects him and every time she does the right thing, despite what he tells her to do, she always says, it was your idea. So at the end of the day, if she makes a brilliant cake and he doesn't even know how to make a cup of tea, and she says, "This is your idea. This is why I got this cake right." He's choda, na? Then it doesn't matter what the truth is. As long as he's part of the team and he's been given credit, it's fine. Good marriages are made like that. Good relationships with clients are also made like that. Good ad films are also made like that.
Now, if Prahlad Kakar were a brand, which brand would that be? Can you relate yourself with some brand?
I'm not a brand. I'm a person who is a searcher. I'm a traveler. I'm a searcher. I'm searching for anything that turns me on. I'm searching for anything that I can learn from. If I don't learn from everything that I do, I get bored. You know, if it's a constant process of learning and discovering and taking risks and doing things which are risky, even with myself, with my people, my kids, make them jump off things, and say, go jump into the water, swim, can't swim, okay, jump in, let's see, I'll jump in if you can't swim, okay, that kind of thing. So always challenging them to do things that they're scared of doing. Always challenging yourself to go where everybody else is scared of going. Because that's life. If you remain scared all your life, then you haven't lived. If you live with fear and overcome it and know that you can survive it, that's life. That is everything in life. And that is my whole purpose of life, is to constantly question the status quo. Is to constantly question and say, why? Why this way? Why not this way? Why is this done this way? Sometimes you realize it's done that way because that's the correct way to do it. And you come back sort of slightly hurt and limping and all and say, yeah, I was wrong. But you must have the humility to admit you were wrong, because you only learn from your mistakes. You never learn from your successes. Success only gives you arrogance. So if I was to only make brilliant ad films and not make really shitty ones, which I keep looking at sideways and saying this is not mine, then I would never learn. I've learned more from my mistakes than I've learned from my successes. The successes have happened because of the mistakes. And if they weren't going hand in hand, then it wouldn't work. Then I'd just think I'm perfect and I would stop growing. The most important thing for a human being is he must never stop growing. He must never feel that he has achieved something that nobody else can achieve. He must never think that he has arrived on his threshold. You must always feel that the journey is still there to go, that you only arrived halfway, and that there's a long way to travel. And that's the adventure of life. The adventure is not to do things which you already know. The adventure is to do things which you don't know, because those are unknown. So you don't know, if you do this and this, what will happen. But you have an idea, so you do it. But the rest of it fills in because of your huge resources and energies in your brain, which finds solutions at the last moment. Disaster is about to happen, the dam is about to break, and then the little boy puts his finger in. For whatever it's worth, you remember that little Dutch boy who went for a susu in the middle of the night, and he found that the dike was leaking, and he realized that if somebody didn't stop the leak, by morning the whole dam would break and the whole village would get washed off. So while he was doing susu, he stuck his finger in and stayed there the whole night. His finger in and stopped the dam from breaking. So that's exactly how you are. You have to think on your feet. Nothing in your life, not your education, not your brains, not your experience, eventually prepares you in advance for crises. Crises have to be solved when the crisis happens. The most brilliant people who work with me are people who are the most invisible. You know why? Because when a crisis happens, you always find heroes.
Yeah.
When a fire happens, there's always a guy standing there, looking like Tarzan, throwing buckets of water, telling everybody what to do, shouting, screaming, sitting in the middle and saying, yeah, my hero. But the fire happened, na? Whatever the fire had to do is done. The destruction is already there. Now, who is more brilliant than the hero? Is the guy who looks at the wire and turns and says, this is going to short circuit. calls the electrician. He says, "वो देखो, वो बाहर लटक रहा है, you know, उसको repair करो. There's a bloody your whole switchboard is about to short circuit." And he says, "हाँ sir." He repairs it and he goes away. Nobody knows what he's done, and that he's avoided a disaster, and therefore he's invisible. Nobody gives him credit. Okay?
Yeah, that's true.
But if he had waited for the disaster to happen, say, "Fire, ye kar, wo kar," you know, bhag. He said, "Ah, ye to kya baat hai, you took over," you know. What a hero you are. You know?
Yeah.
Heroes are frauds. Because if there's any crisis, there will be a hero. Somebody will come up and do. सभी थोड़ी भागेंगे. एक तो खड़ा हो जाएगा ना. कहेंगे कुछ करो. So the guy who's a real hero is the guy who quietly does things so that the disaster doesn't happen only. So my best production people have been always people who anticipate a problem, who don't solve problems because they don't need to.
Yeah.
So management, as we know it, look at people and pat them on the back for solving crises, for being in the middle of a situation and taking care of it. Actually, the real manager is the guy who makes sure that it doesn't happen only. Now, when it doesn't happen, he's invisible. You don't give him credit. Client is an idiot. So the client became an idiot, you know, for whatever it's worth. Client is always an idiot. Anyway. You must touch your audience with emotion. If you cannot touch them with emotion, they forget your message.